impact of this pandemic we're facing. And I'm so grateful that Jenna and George are joining us again to help talk you all through the unemployment assistance process. We've spent weeks before the PUA came online and before you even knew the acronym of PUA, trying to get you ready for accessing federal and state funding quickly. But subsequently, that assistance has come online, and we know that some of you are getting access to benefits, but others of you have been stuck on websites crashing, falling into gaps and categories that you didn't really expect and you thought you might qualify, but based on prior incomes or things like that, now you're finding you're ineligible. So we're hoping today to just dig in, be super unvarnished about this all. Don't pull punches on us, and I think really we're trying to be a direct conduit to the governor and to the labor secretary and to Congress through these forums. And I just want to say at the gates, it has been useful. Within 24 hours after our last town hall, EDD kicked into 12-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week operations. We got a firm date for the initiation of the PUA process within a day of our forum. So it's okay to be frustrated in these venues. That energy is useful for our advocacy as well. But let's make this as practical as we can and move forward. So I'll just walk through out the gates a couple of the programs. So there's the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. There's the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program, and then there's traditional unemployment insurance. Those are sort of the three core areas that you may fall into one of those categories in terms of accessing an unemployment system to help get you basically through the next period of time. So we know that you've been working diligently, but let's try to use this next hour or so to dig into some specific questions, and we would have no answers for those questions were it not for Legal Aid at Work. So thank you to the staff attorneys again for joining in, George and Jenna. And Legal Aid at Work, by the way, it's legalaidatwork.org, but I'll personally testify, hearing from many of you out there who after these forums have given them a call, done the follow-up, gone through your individual case, and lo and behold, they answer the phone, there's a person there, and you're getting sound advice, and you're actually getting through the system. So thanks for not just offering service and sort of talking, but actually delivering. You guys have been tremendous. Can you just kick us off here and sort of talk through programs at a high level, eligibility? Just give us a sort of initial primer, will you?
Yeah, I can start off and then George can kick in, but thank you so much for having us again. And like you said, legalaidatwork.org, we are here to help you. We have a lot of resources on our website, and for people who need some individual help, please call us and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. But yeah, just to start out, so I know how confusing navigating these various programs are and trying to figure out which one is the correct one. All of us attorneys are spending so much of our time doing that, and it's very confusing. But luckily, as it relates to regular unemployment insurance and the new Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, or PUA, there's now just one streamlined application for both. So you don't have to know which one you qualify for. Rather, you fill out one application and the EDD will determine which one, if either, you qualify for. So that is, you don't have to know. You just go to UI online and you fill out one application to answer all the questions as best, as truthfully and as best you can, and they will make that determination. But I'll give a brief overview of the main differences just so you can understand how they are different from each other. So unemployment insurance is for employees who are out of work or underemployed through no fault of their own, have enough past wages to qualify, and are able, available, and willing to work. So generally, unemployment insurance benefits range from $50 to $450 per week, and you can receive UI for up to 26 weeks. For UI benefits, you should expect to wait at least 21 days or 3 weeks between when you submit your application and when you actually receive your benefits. And it may actually, of course, be longer because of all the claims they're receiving. So pandemic unemployment assistance, PUA, is a new program that was put into place by the CARES Act at the federal level. And PUA provides emergency unemployment assistance to individuals who are left out of regular state unemployment insurance. So one of the main eligibility requirements for PUA is actually that you do not qualify for regular unemployment insurance. So there's no situation where you could be eligible for both at the same time. So so it's for people who aren't normally covered by state unemployment insurance, who have exhausted their state UI benefits, or are unemployed or underemployed for COVID-19 related reasons. So those eligible for PUA include self-employed individuals, independent contractors, freelancers, workers seeking part-time work, and workers who do not have a long enough work history to qualify for regular unemployment insurance benefits. PUA is available from the end of January until the end of December 2020. And you can receive PUA for up to 39 weeks. And the weekly benefits in that program range from $167 to $450. So it's a higher minimum than regular UI, but the same maximum. And for PUA, to expedite the paying out of PUA claims, the EDD actually, what they're going to do is for everyone who qualifies for PUA, you're just going to receive the minimum $167 per week initially. So they can get those benefits to you as soon as possible. Thereafter, based on the income information you share with the EDD, they'll determine whether you qualify for higher weekly benefits, and if so, send you an additional check for that amount. But everyone who receives any amount of UI or PUA starting March 27th to the end of July 2020 will also receive an additional $600 per week, which is another benefit that was created by the CARES Act that's called Pandemic Unemployment Compensation, or PUC. So whether you qualify for UI or PUA, you will get that extra $600 till the end of July.
So just doing the math on that, and George, I want to go over to you in a second, but it's the 167 that will be that sort of basic minimum. They'll come back and potentially update it, but then on top of that is 600. So really about 767 out the gates, but then maybe supplemented by more depending on your circumstance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
George, yeah, I know you had a few things to add on here too. Oh, I lost you.
Sorry, I'm on mute. So I was just going to explain a little bit about the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. So Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, or PEUC, is basically just 13 additional weeks of regular unemployment insurance benefits for workers who have exhausted their regular unemployment insurance claim between July 2019 and the present. And you can first get those benefits starting the week of March 29th, or you're entitled to those benefits starting the week of March 29th. And although the policy sounds like a simple expansion, the Employment Development Department has not yet implemented this program. So you're going to still have to wait to actually get the benefits that you're entitled to if you've exhausted your normal unemployment claim. If you basically between July 2019 and the present. I encourage you to check back at EDD's website in the coronavirus response page, as that website will have information about when you will be able to get access to that program. And I understand that this is about as terrible advice as you could get, but that is the advice right now, is for those people that we have to wait until the EDD is ready to process those claims.
So basically, for people who are already in the hole coming into this, they're stuck in that hole.
Yeah, so yes, mostly there are some complicated interactions between the programs. So if there's some people who exhausted unemployment insurance benefits before March 2020, and then they got a job, and then they lost that new job because of COVID-19. Those people should be able to get pandemic unemployment assistance for the weeks between February 2nd, or whenever they lost their job, in the end of March, and then they'll move back to pandemic emergency unemployment compensation. So some people who have exhausted their claim may be able to get benefits sooner, and those people should get a notice from the Employment Development Department in the mail informing them how to apply for the pandemic unemployment assistance for that time period. It's
not ideal, but thanks
no, no.
Look at it. That sounds like a bit of homework for me to be working on too here. Can we start diving into some of these other hypotheticals that have been coming our way?
Yeah.
So let's do PUA off the top. We've heard this from countless folks who submitted the application before April 28th, which was advice we gave, and a lot of other people said just throw it in there, see what happens. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll reassess. They got back a $0 award. They're now trying to figure out, are they going to get back to me? Do I have to get back to them? Do they reapply? What's the best practice there?
Yeah, so there's really two options in this situation, and it depends on two major things. But basically, if you have been working as a bona fide independent contractor or you're self-employed and you apply for unemployment insurance before April 28th in an attempt to actually apply for the PUA program, and you received a $0 award notice, you need to and should go ahead and now reapply through UI Online and answer the new questions, and it should kick you over to PUA, but you actively have to go and reapply. You shouldn't attempt to open a new account though. You should rather log into your existing UI Online account that you had used previously to file your application, and then you'll hit file a new claim. And you'll have to answer, it's going to be very similar questions you answered before, but there now will be additional questions. Now, if you have been getting paid as an independent contractor, but believe you were misclassified, you have two options now. Your first option is that you can appeal the $0 wage notice, and you can ask the EDD to open a wage audit to determine if you were misclassified. And if they make that determination, you then will receive unemployment insurance, and you will go through that process. So if you've already done this, if you've already appealed that $0, presented them with your wage information, and the wage audit has begun, you have to continue to go down this path, and you cannot apply for PUA. However, if you haven't done this and a wage audit has not been started, you can also choose to go back and apply for PUA. And the EDD has stated that you're not going to waive your rights under any other claims you may have as a misclassified worker. So you got to really see which route you want to go. Applying for PUA will probably be the faster option, but for certain individuals, that might not be the best option to get the most money in the long term. Because if you are determined to be misclassified, you may actually receive a higher weekly benefit amount or be able to receive unemployment insurance for longer, but it will probably take longer to actually get the money.
But what I'm hearing you say, though, is there's no, the system won't necessarily discriminate against you if you go that near-term route for PUA. You're not waiving your rights to still go through that wage audit and reclassification process. Am I getting that right?
We'd love for you to work on that with us. I think that it's not completely clear as it relates to the unemployment insurance system, but I think that's the better, that should be what happens. And it's certainly what the federal guidance says that California should do. Yeah, I think that's, but we can't read there's a certain amount of tea leaf reading.
Right.
Yeah, and and the point too is it wouldn't waive your right to bring any other claims that relate to misclassification. So if you have, they failed to pay you overtime or correct minimum wage or any other like employment law wage and hour claims you may have, the EDD is saying that applying for PUA is not going to affect your ability to bring those claims in the future.
Got it. Yeah. So Agatha, I won't say her last name, but she asked a question that many other people have, which is that given all the uncertainty, I'm not even sure if I'm eligible for UI or PUA. So they just sat tight. She says, I've yet to even apply? What should I do?
Yeah, so I'm happy to take that. And luckily, this is actually an easy question, which is that you should apply. So there's one application. It's the same application for unemployment insurance and pandemic unemployment assistance, and you should answer the questions honestly and truthfully. And if you once you apply, the state will assess whether or not you're eligible for unemployment insurance, and if you're not eligible, then it will assess whether you're eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance. So it's actually you should just apply. For most people who have a history of W-2 earnings, the state will have to take its time to assess your application for UI, and you'll have to wait the full 21 days before you get either benefit. And I just want to note, I think that one thing people might be confused about when they apply is that they should be in the last employer section. It's going to ask you why you left your last job. You should be answering why you left your last job as an employee. So if you worked 18 months ago and then or 15 months ago and quit your job to start as a self-employed person, and then when COVID-19 came around, you no longer had work as a self-employed person because of COVID-19, you should be answering that you quit your job because you decided to become self-employed. So I think that question might trip some people up, and that might make their claims processing not go as smoothly.
Fill it back out one more time for us here. So what's the scenario?
Yeah. So say that you, like a year ago, you decide to quit your job. You're working as a cashier. You quit your job as a cashier and you started your own business. So in the application is going to ask you about your last job, your last job for an employer, and it's going to say, why did you quit that job? And you should say, I quit my job as a cashier because I became a self-employed person. You shouldn't say, I lost my job as a self-employed person because of COVID-19. So so the questions about your last job are talking about your last job as an employee, and that's just a kind of a nuance that people. I mean, there's a lot of questions that are not that simple on these applications, unfortunately.
And there is, I mean, are there opportunities to make corrections though if people did slip up on that one, for instance? Like if you, I mean, they'll come back to you with some kind of award, but there's still some fail safes to go back.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, if you already applied and there's a mistake, you can submit a question through Ask EDD or EDD online, or you can try to reach EDD, although that's still very difficult to do, and you have to use the proper number, the number that's for claims related questions from 8 to 12, Monday through Friday, not the 8 to 8 number. But yes, but you can submit a query online that you slipped up on that specific question.
Gotcha. Follow up on this. Also, we had a question if folks are eligible to receive back pay if they're still working to submit their unemployment claims but have been unemployed since March.
Yeah, the answer is yes. So, and under pandemic unemployment assistance, this should happen automatically, and it should happen automatically with unemployment insurance too. We have heard from some individuals, and the EDD has been processing literally millions of claims, so it's not surprising that they've messed up sometimes. But we've heard from some individuals that when they've applied for unemployment insurance, they're only getting benefits from the week that they applied. And if you're in that situation, you should send a paper letter, by mail, and you can also duplicate it online if you need to. But you should send a letter by mail to the address on the upper left-hand corner of the notice of claim or notice of determination, and say, I lost work on March 15th, and the reason why I didn't submit my application until May 15th was we're in a global pandemic. I didn't have access to mail. I didn't understand how to navigate the website. I tried to call, any of the hundreds of good reasons for the delay, and say this is what the legal term is. This is a good cause for backdating my claim. I don't think you need to use the legal term, but it wouldn't hurt to say good cause.
Okay. Got another question here from Chris, who asked, I have not yet received my EDD debit card, even though I was approved for benefits and I certified. He says, my account says paid, quote unquote, but I can't access the funds without that debit card. Please help.
Yeah, I can take this one. So this is, again, where it's not the most helpful answer, but you need to contact Bank of America if this is the case. So it does usually take 7 to 10 days to receive your EDD debit card in the mail from Bank of America if you didn't have one. But if it's been longer than 7 to 10 days, you could visit. So it's prepaid.bankofamerica.com/EDD card. And if you just Google Bank of America EDD card, you're going to get it too. Okay. And you can select replace my card and order a new one. However, this will deactivate the original one that may be in transit. So I would recommend waiting at least 2 weeks before requesting a new one, because the mail, as we know, can just be slow. But if it's been more than 2 weeks, you can go online and ask for a new card.
And can I just add one thing there? If you were unemployed recently, it's going to be the same card that you had last time. So if it's still in your possession, you should use it. If it's not, if you've been unemployed recently, but you lost the card, then you're going to have to ask for a replacement. They're not going to send you a new card.
Okay. Ariana has our next question. The unemployment application asks if I am actively looking for work. I am not, because of COVID-19. Should I say that, or will I be denied?
You can say that, and you should always say the truthful thing, and you will not be denied for saying that. Usually you have to be looking for work to get unemployment insurance benefits. You do not need to be looking for work right now to get unemployment insurance benefits. The EDD has made that very clear.
Got it. Okay, how about Angela? We had a question just come in. Angela says, my account has been pending for 5 weeks, and I think I've fallen into a black hole at EDD. I obviously cannot get a hold of anyone. What should I do? Guys got any insights or war stories from the field? Are things getting a little better in terms of the 3-hour hold times and the website crashes and things like that?
So unfortunately, for these claim-specific questions, I don't think things have gotten that much better. Unfortunately for something like this, you do have to reach someone at the EDD. So, like our organization, we're not able to actually see your claim information. So the best ways to do this are, so if this is like what I assume is pending is she's filed her UI claim but hasn't received any response from the EDD. And so if that's the case, you can either try to contact the EDD through your online account or through Ask EDD. So if you go to Ask EDD, you can select various drop downs. And if you select the right ones, you can get to an actual open box where you can type in, you give your email, your number, and you can type in your question. And they said they are responding to those as they come in. So that, I would say, is the best way to try to reach them if you haven't done that. Otherwise, the only other option is to continue and try and call their individual claim helpline. And that's one, as George pointed out, is the one that's still only available from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Monday through Friday. If you call the new number that's open, 7 days a week, they unfortunately can't look at your individual claim.
Got it. So the chat bot then sounds like worth taking a shot at the chat bot.
Well, the chat bot is different from Ask EDD. So the chat bot is just going to provide you general information.
I see. So the chat bot won't get you into your claim either not Jenna's case, Angela's case, black hole.
Unfortunately, she'll have to do Ask EDD. And I do know one drop down combination that will get you to that free form is if you choose, I believe it's like unemployment insurance online question. And then the next one you have to choose is like, I'm receiving an error message. And you'll actually see next to the drop-down options, if it has informational next to it, that means it's not going to allow you to do like submit an actual question. So you have to choose one that doesn't have informational next to it, and that will allow you to submit an actual question.
I'm wondering, maybe in the future we should try to share screen and just like go play around on the website. Maybe we could do that in the future. So I don't want to say that we've got broken promises here, because I think there's actually been a lot of progress made and a lot of claims processed, but that magic 24-hour to 48-hour turnaround, just give it to us straight here, folks. I want to set everyone's expectations. Is the 24 to 48-hour processing happening with PUA, or do you think they're still trying to hit that target?
So I think there was a lot of fine print in that 24 to 48 hours turnaround that wasn't very apparent, and I think did give some false hope. George can speak if he's actually heard of people that have actually gotten PUA benefits so far, but so what the EDD's guidance says is that if you already had an EDD debit card, you should have received your PUA payments on that debit card within 48 hours if there was no other issues with your application. So if you filled out all the questions correctly, they were able to determine you were PUA, and you had an EDD debit card already, then theoretically you should have gotten payments within 48 hours on that debit card.
Got it.
However, since they usually mail notices out, it will actually take longer than that for you to receive any communication from that your claim was actually approved and benefits were paid. So I would recommend, if you applied for PUA and you have an EDD debit card, you should go onto Bank of America's EDD debit card account, like your account that you had set up, and see if there are funds in there. Because there may be before you even receive any notice from the EDD that you paid them.
The system will beat the mail to you.
Yes.
You may even have funds on your debit card that you didn't even realize were there.
Exactly.
Got it.
I don't know, but like I would suggest doing that. But if you didn't already have an EDD debit card, then
all game. Yep.
Then it's different, and the EDD has instructed that it will take 4 to 7 days for the EDD debit card to be mailed to you. Gotcha. So again, that's assuming everything is processed correctly. It should, like, at a minimum, I would say at least a week before that card's going to get to you. And again, just a reminder that this 24, 48 hours timeline, even in the best of circumstances, is only for PUA. It does not apply to regular UI benefits. That is still the 21-day waiting period.
And just to emphasize there, it's for anyone who, if you have any wages, like earnings as a W-2 employee in the system from the last 18 months, you're not going to get, it's going to take 21 days. Mm-hmm. So, and I think I just want to emphasize that the people who have an EDD debit card but have no wages in the system are going to be a very small number of people, because it's unlikely that you've been accessing unemployment insurance in the past, but now are working as an employee. So I'm just.
Yeah, that's a really good point, George. If you're an independent contractor, there's no way you already have an EDD debit card.
Yeah, so I think it's likely at least a week.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be following up and trying to get data out of the department as well to hear actually what the time is looking like on average and specifically, and trying to dig into this detail. We're going back up next week to start session, and oversight is already underway. So we'll be looking into that further. Michael from Tarzana, thank you for the question. He's asking about recertification. So he says, once I am approved, will I have to keep certifying for benefits every week, or will it be automatic?
Yeah, so I can take that. So as a general matter, yes, you have to certify every week to be eligible for unemployment insurance benefits. And it appears that there will be a weekly certification requirement for pandemic unemployment assistance benefits as well. And the fastest way normally is to go online at UI Online and certify there, but you can also certify over the phone or by mail. Right now, between March 14th and at least May 9th, you do not need to certify, or most people do not need to certify at all. The people who could still need to certify are people who are getting unemployment insurance benefits and are working part-time. If you're working part-time right now, you need to go online, go to Ask EDD, and then there's a sequence of selections that you have to make to get to submit information about your part-time work. But if you're not working part-time, you do not need to certify right now.
Okay. Next question from Cheryl. Cheryl says, I've been disqualified from unemployment insurance because of a penalty on my account that I didn't even know about until last week. What can I do?
Yeah, so I just want to first say that I'm sorry that you've been penalized like that. We've heard from a lot of people that have been that have received penalty weeks.
Explain that. Just I'm not as in the. So how does it work? What would a penalty be for?
Yeah, so a penalty could be for what is called for an overpayment. So if you messed up and didn't report how much you earned during a given week accurately, you may have gotten an overpayment. Or a penalty could be what the department calls a false statement, and what I like to call someone who's confused with a very confusing system. So you could get penalized and you have to pay money back to the department, and you are then unable to access unemployment insurance for a number of weeks. And the system's just too punitive. It's way too punitive. But luckily right now, at least temporarily, people who are on penalty weeks will be able to access pandemic unemployment assistance in the near term. And the way that that's going to happen is that those people should be getting a letter. The letters were sent out this weekend, so they should be coming soon. And that letter will have instructions on how to apply for pandemic unemployment assistance if you're serving a penalty week. But yeah, it's definitely, we hear stories about all the time people who don't realize that they have a penalty. I can guarantee you that 95 to 99, the vast majority of people who are serving penalty weeks just are.
There's a lot of detail, and there's like good faith errors that people are making that aren't sort of intentionally deceptive, but for whatever reason don't adhere exactly to the guidelines. And so if they're getting frozen out for that sort of mistake in the system, then that's just not going to work. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. George, just correct me if I'm wrong, but you would suggest that people still appeal those penalty weeks, right? Even though they can apply for PUA, they should go through that process to appeal, so they won't potentially have to pay them later on.
Yeah, I think that's the next step that someone in the situation can do, is they can explain that they weren't aware that they had a penalty week. They're going to have to seek good cause to appeal late. But yes, you can download an appeal form online and appeal the earlier determination that you did something fraudulent, or that you overpaid.
Okay. So for Cheryl, that's probably cold comfort that there's yet another form, but it sounds like a situation where you do have to get that appeal going, get that initiated, and then just hang on. And in the meantime, we'll try to work on better mechanics on our end to make sure that penalty isn't freezing your benefits when it's hanging over your head like that, or disqualifying you, maybe not freezing, but disqualifying you on the UI side. Can we, let's take this question from Jasleen. Jasleen asks, I exhausted my benefits. How do I know whether I am eligible for PUA or the PEUC?
Yeah, so George talked about this a little bit in the beginning. So if you were on UI and you exhausted your benefits, you most likely are going to qualify for PEUC generally, which unfortunately is a program that is not yet up and running. And so while you qualify and you're going to be able to backdate your claim, you can't do that yet. However, as George pointed out, there's this like complicated interplay between PEUC and PUA. So if you exhausted your UI benefits, if you have an open UI account and you exhaust your benefits before March 28th, you may be able to get PUA for the period between February 2nd and March 28th. And for those individuals who are eligible for that, the EDD will be sending a notice to them. It's a PUA award notice that will have you'll have to actually actively like fill it out to certify that you like were not working during that time period for a COVID-19 related reason. And then you may be eligible for PUA benefits from February 2nd to March 28th. But then after that period, or for people who exhausted their benefits after March 28th, you'll have to wait to apply for PEUC. And we're hopeful that there will be guidance on that soon.
Is that on us or is that on the feds?
Well, the fact that it's not operational is on us, but it is on us. But I think, I will make no excuses for our outdated system, but I will say the EDD is working on very old IT, and was not meant to handle these new programs that are completely different than what they've done before.
Yeah, I think as a policy issue, and I know that this we'll focus on the practical advice, but it's also the Fed's fault for thinking that the unemployment insurance system could handle what's happening right now. It couldn't, and it's on the Feds. That's on the Feds. So.
I don't think anybody here is too worried about blame or the politics. I mean, I think governor so far has had a pretty can-do attitude, as well as Secretary Sue. So I don't think they're going to say like, oh, you have no right to be frustrated. How dare you? Like, people are clinging by a thread here. So I think the gravity of this is not lost on them. And I just think identifying this stuff and going as fast as we can and throwing administrative dollars at it. I know we're doing a lot of hiring there too, and the IT part, they're trying to get creative. So, I mean, have you heard any timeline in terms of when that might be up and running? I can start digging myself and see what we can scrap together, but have they any projections of when PEUC may be up?
I mean, Secretary Sue said during her live Facebook Live on Friday that she was hopeful to have more of an update this week, and that it was a #1 priority that they're working on. Okay. So we hope to have an update this week, but there wasn't actually any timeline of when they think it will be operational.
Got it. Well, we'll follow up with her on the administration, hopefully get some more concrete to give everybody this week. I wanted to keep going on the benefit exhaustion question. Can you just elaborate a little bit more, Jenna? And maybe you already have covered this somewhat, but for folks who exhausted their benefits within the last year prior to the pandemic, how do they navigate?
So, as George pointed out earlier, if you exhausted your benefits, but then went back to work, but then lost your job again for COVID-19 related reasons, and were out of work or underemployed from February 2nd to March 28th, you should go online and apply and submit the UI online application, and you should be eligible for PUA benefits in that situation from February 2nd to March 28th. But for other individuals, unfortunately, if you're currently unemployed right now for COVID-19 related reasons, even if you've already exhausted, you should be eligible for these 13 additional weeks of PEUC, but you can't yet actually apply for those 13 additional weeks. But I will say those 13 additional weeks are going to be able to be backdated, and while you're on them, you're also going to be eligible for that additional $600 a week till the end of July.
Okay. Scott had a question also on this issue. Thanks, Scott, for weighing in. Scott says, I think I qualify for PUA, but when I go to apply on UI online, it says I'm ineligible since I received benefits within the last year.
Yeah, so that person, Scott, will almost certainly be eligible for PEUC once that becomes live. But even if he is eligible for PUA, because he has that in the scenario that Jenna explained, he will have to wait till he gets a paper letter from EDD and respond to that letter. So he may be able to. It actually, the way I'm just kind of reading the tea leaves here, but it sounds like he may have may be in exactly the situation that Jenna described and be able to get PUA during at least parts of February and March.
I see. And so timing wise on receiving.
That should be like this. That should be this week. That should be soon.
Okay, that's good news. Or should folks be getting any documents prepared to make sure they can get the paperwork complete quickly when it arrives?
Yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of the documentation you probably already have available, just your driver's license, but then also like just work history. So the things that I wouldn't have that I'd want are like a W-2, information about like the address where you worked, other information about your employer, your past employers, and then if you're an independent contractor, if you have your if you file taxes for 2019 already, then you'll want your 2019 taxes. If you haven't, you'll want your 1099s.
Okay. This mixed income question keeps coming up too. Individuals that have more than one job and have a W-2 for some of their earnings, but are an independent contractor or sole proprietor for their other income. The one example we had from Mariana was that she has more than one job, so she received a W-2 and she's partially self-employed. It looks like she's sort of stuck in the middle. She might not be eligible for either. Is this true?
So I can start, and I'll ask George to jump in to put more. So first, I would just like to say, no, that is not true. You will likely be eligible for unemployment insurance, but your weekly benefit amount will only be based on your W-2 earnings. So this is something that we hear a lot too, and people are very frustrated by. But unfortunately, this is a product of federal law. This is something that is mandated because when the CARES Act came out and it created pandemic unemployment assistance, it stated that you are not eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance if you are otherwise eligible for regular unemployment assistance. It was supposed to be this like benefit of last resort. So if you have any W-2 wages in the past year, then you're going to be eligible for unemployment insurance and not pandemic unemployment assistance. So if you are a mixed W-2 1099 worker, you can't choose whether you get to go on the UI or PUA path. Rather, like I said, if you have W-2 and you would otherwise qualify for UI, you're going to get put in UI and your weekly benefit amount is going to be based on your W-2 wages. And again, this is because of federal law, not something the state has a choice over. But there is only one streamlined application, as we said, so you don't have to even make that determination. You, and particularly this caller, Mariana, I believe her name was, she should just go fill out the application truthfully. It will ask for her social security number, and then they'll be able to pull all her wages, and they'll be able to see that she has W-2.
Okay.
And can I just add a few details there? So we've been hearing from a lot of people who qualify for a pretty small unemployment insurance award, and I totally feel for those people. I think that the as a policy matter, the thing that's kind of unfair is actually not just to those workers, but to all workers who are getting paid the same or less than an independent contractor is in this situation, because unemployment insurance is a insurance system. You pay into it, and then the assistance is not an insurance system. So ideally, that the assistance would be supplemental to the insurance system. As just a straight up practical matter, if you've got a small unemployment insurance award and you're also doing work as an independent contractor, you should think very hard and long about whether or not you were misclassified by any of those employers that are paying you as a 1099. So I've gotten calls from a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers who also do W-2 work. And then, so they got a small award based on their W-2 work, but then none of their Uber or Lyft income was counted. And those workers, if they submit a wage audit, well, I don't want to guarantee it, but I've been hearing from a lot of drivers who are getting the full benefit amount under unemployment insurance once they ask for a wage audit. but it's not just Uber and Lyft drivers. And sometimes talking about Uber and Lyft can distract from like misclassification that happens in every part of the economy, the new economy, the old economy, you know. So there was one example in an LA Times article about this issue this weekend, which I thought was particularly poignant. And it was the guy who was featured was a organist for the Anaheim Ducks, and he was an organist for a college basketball team, and he was an organist as a W-2 for the Ducks and as a contractor for the basketball team. If you're doing the same job for two different companies and you're getting paid as an employee for one and a contractor for the other one, you are almost certainly being misclassified. And because employers don't classify you as an employee if they can classify you as a contractor. So I would think very long and hard about whether or not you're misclassified if you're getting a small UI award and can't get pandemic unemployment assistance, and ask for a wage audit if you might have been misclassified. And there are instructions on how to ask for that on our website.
Okay, that's great. I think we're going to go to a few more from our not studio audience in our not studio. There's some live questions that have been coming in here. So let's try Esther. Esther is asking, why is it taking so long for people to verify their identities? And why do we have to do that by mail only? I see we have a lot of comments on this issue Esther's asking, so I thought that might be relevant. Identity verification, why by mail?
I don't have great information about that. I would say that
is that question maybe more for me then? So like, why'd you guys set it up this way? And you might think of a more streamlined way of doing identity verification. That's all right.
I think that's partially for you, but I think part of it is that I have heard of people who have been able to, once they've gotten on the phone with someone at EDD, have figured out the identity problem over the phone. And sometimes it might be as simple as a typo on an ID or something of that nature. But I think part of the reason why it's by mail is like a security issue. But I think in 2020 we should be able to deal with communication by.
Yeah. And I can add to that too, is it's also an IT issue. So there's actually like not an option to like upload PDFs to.
And no, we went through this on the last, I sent a note over after our last town hall where you couldn't upload any documents and just snailing through it all. So this is just one more sort of, it's not any different for identity verification versus other sort of documentation.
But what we have heard is that once you get on the phone with some agents, they may be able to accept documents either through fax, or they may be able to get it more quickly. So okay. I know that suggesting that people try to get EDD on the phone is kind of a crazy piece of advice, but I think that in this situation that is a good alternative or something to do in addition to sending documents by mail.
And I would say if you guys are making out there a good faith effort to try to do those phone calls and call during that claim window, that narrow window that's been given, and you're still hitting a wall, a lot of you have been emailing and calling us. We're working your cases too and rattling their cage when we can. I think we've been successful in some of those cases and can troubleshoot it. So know that if it really is not just like a legal question or a technical question, which I would be going to these folks at Legal Aid with, but if it's really, you feel like the department's just not responding and you're simply hitting a wall, that's where I got to go do my job. So please keep those that feedback coming. And we can't do magic here, but we can certainly make you not invisible.
And I'll just add that
George.
To your constituents, you should take up your senator on that offer, because I think that it is helpful. So
yeah, I mean, every squeaky wheel, that we can, I don't know how many, it's not a 4-wheel operation, it's like a 4 million wheels. So let's all, as squeaky as you all can get. We'll go to work for you. How about Susie? Susie said, how do I certify for benefits as a self-employed person? What do you guys think of that?
I think that you should be patient right now, because you actually don't need to certify until at least May 9th and probably later. And you should check back at the pandemic unemployment assistance page that EDD is set up once they actually give more clarity on that issue. But they haven't given that much guidance as to how to certify if you're a self-employed person yet.
Okay. Any other questions from studio? I know we've only got a few minutes left here. I did want to take a moment to talk about one additional resource before we wrapped up. So let me take this second just to talk briefly about Onward CA, which the state has put forward. Governor's office led the effort to put this sort of one-stop shop for Californians who have been impacted but aren't necessarily trying to access this direct unemployment benefit, but instead be looking for job resources, employment matching surveys, toolkits, but also assistance in sort of essential life services. So food and nutrition assistance, wellness issues, as well as hooking you into your county resources. So I would certainly guide you all for sort of what we can't catch through this EDD process and more general needs to Onward California or Onward CA. But know that we're going back to work, and the economic recovery is the central priority of our Senate, certainly. And I think I can say that for the whole legislature. We've been paring down all the other issues to only those things that are truly life and death essential work that we need to be doing. And so Onward CA is a good start for a resource, but frankly, you all are sitting in a black hole, as one of our participants put it. And so it's insufficient, and we need more federal funding. We know that, but we're also trying to find creative new ways to unlock state capital. We had to make some tough decisions about deferring sales tax revenues to cities, for instance, to backstop the PPP program, which had been sucked up by a bunch of people who frankly shouldn't have been taking those benefits. So we've been trying to fix that, looking at issues like, do we go to voters with a bond in November and try to find ways that way, or other creative financing mechanisms to free up more cash in the system so that we don't have the basic functions of government going under, but also that you guys have some glimmer of hope that there's economic daylight. And even if the job you were doing before this is too complicated or it just isn't going to work, say you're working in a restaurant, and because of spacing requirements in phase 3 or 4, they're only hiring half the staff back. Well, you've got it. That's fine for the half that gets hired, but for you guys who are stuck behind, that's not going to work. So we're going to try to help casework the process for you. And Jen and George, you all are saints for doing this and keep coming back to us every time and being so thorough. So thank you for this, but necessary but not sufficient. So we're going to try to put some kind of arc together where we can, in near term, like this summer, start moving more cash in the system and try to find you some path back to solvency. The sad truth is that a lot of people on top are still doing just fine. And maybe the markets took a dip, but people sold off stocks. And there's a lot of people who are still sitting pretty. And it's no offense to those folks, but the system just simply isn't working for the working. And whether it's our back end in our software or it's actually our politics that are broken, it's not acceptable. So please just be frank. Frustration's useful, but be specific. We know there's anger out there, but help us channel it. And we're going to be sort of asking you, once we sort of do get a focus, to come back and be a vocal bunch of advocates to say, weigh in a hearing in Sacramento where we do want to fix some of these programs that Jen and George have been talking about, or help us define what a bottom-up recovery looks like. So anyhow, thank you for tuning in and we're just hanging on. My heart breaks every day, and we're trying to keep up with this as best we can, but just try to stay in touch, and don't give up yet. But anyhow, senator.stern@sen.ca.gov, at Henry Stern CA, our direct access line, 818-876-3352 or 916-651-4027. Thank you to my staff. You guys have been amazing. And I know you guys have been sending some feedback too, but especially those working the cases here and making all this happen. Megan, Steve, Nick, Gil with a lot of technical work, and Allison, and Denise has been doing great. So to this entire team and our fearless leader in the district, Jeremy, thank you guys for really looking out for people. Lauren, great blasts, and you're getting excellent at our own bureaucracy. So thank you to my team, and please be safe out there. We are not out of the woods yet, folks. It's phase 2 now, but this is not the time to let down our guard. So for all you Angelinos on the call, I know you want to surf and go to the beach. Side issue. Wait. Ventura County is further down the curve. So I'm antsy too. But just hang on. We're gonna get through this. Okay, gang. Thanks.